Hi guys, tonight we're going to do something very simple, at least in our imagination. We're going to lie down on a bed from the Middle Ages, not a grand royal bed with silk curtains and carved golden posts, but an ordinary one, the kind most people would have known, the kind that creaked, rustled, and probably had more life in it than you'd ideally want. So get comfortable where you are, because compared to where we're going, you're already doing incredibly well. Picture a small house made of wood, mud, and whatever else the builder could find nearby. The walls aren't straight. They lean a little, like they're tired too. The floor isn't smooth, it's packed earth, maybe with some scattered rushes, dry plants spread around to soak up spills, and let's be honest, other less charming things. The air smells faintly of smoke, damp wood, and everyday life. It's nighttime. Or at least it's as close to night as people could tell without glowing clocks and phone screens. The only light comes from the fire, which never truly leaves. It shrinks, it glows, it sulks, but it stays. That fire is the heart of the house. The heater, the stove, the light source, and occasionally the smoke machine. Your bed is not in a separate bedroom. Bedrooms as private quiet spaces are a fairly modern luxury. Here sleeping happens where life happens. In the same room where food is cooked, tools are repaired, and possibly a chicken has recently expressed strong opinions about something. The bed itself is more of a structure than a soft invitation. A wooden frame, often simple and sturdy, sometimes just a rope lattice stretched across a frame. On top of that might be a sack stuffed with straw, hay, or dried leaves. This is the mattress, or in medieval terms, a perfectly reasonable arrangement. Now, straw sounds rustic and charming in theory. In practice, it has opinions. It pokes. It shifts. It slowly migrates away from where you need it most. Over time, it breaks down into dusty fragments, which means every time you lie down, you're participating in a gentle nightly cloud of historical confetti. Still, this bed is valuable. It's one of the more important items in the house. You don't just flop onto it in muddy clothes if you can help it. Beds represent comfort, status, and warmth. Even a basic one is something to care for, to mend, to protect from damp. As you settle onto this rustling mattress, you probably don't do it alone. In many homes, beds were shared. With a spouse, yes, but also sometimes with children, or even other family members. Space is limited and warmth is precious. You are quite literally a team sport now. The blanket, if you have one, is likely wool. Thick, heavy, and slightly scratchy, like being hugged by a determined sheep. But that sheep hug holds heat well, and in a house where the night air creeps through gaps in the walls, that matters more than softness. You lie back. The room doesn't go silent. Houses at night are full of sounds. The fire clicks softly. Wood beams settle with slow, thoughtful creaks. Someone nearby coughs in their sleep. Outside wind moves around the walls, searching for weaknesses and usually finding a few. This is what bedtime feels like. Less like shutting the world out, and more like gently agreeing to rest while the world continues doing its thing right beside you. Outside, the wind continues to howl violently. A constant reminder that the warmth inside is never guaranteed, that it can vanish at any moment and be replaced by biting cold. The fire flickers, throwing long, wavering shadows across the walls. The smell of wood smoke seeps into your clothes, your hair, even into your dreams. It is not a pleasant scent by modern standards, but it is the smell of survival. Simply put, it is the smell of home. And the cold, it is never far away. Even when the fire burns fiercely in the hearth, it cannot reach every corner of the room. You feel the chill creeping up from the floor, slipping through the gaps in the walls and the thin roof above. If you are lucky, your bed is close enough to the fire to feel its warmth radiating outward. If not, you wrap yourself in thick, coarse woolen blankets and endure the sharp bite of winter. Each night feels slightly colder than the one before. You pile on layers, hoping the small amount of heat your body produces will be enough to keep the cold from settling into your bones. This is not a ritual of comfort, but of survival. You draw your knees to your chest, wishing that the little warmth you have will stay with you through the long, dark hours. But this bed is not only a place to sleep. It is where you lay your body down after a long, exhausting day of labor, after hours spent in the fields, the barn, or whatever task life demanded of you. The bed represents not just rest, but a brief escape from everything the day has taken from you. Still, when night comes and you rest your head, sleep does not arrive easily. Your mind is as tired as your body, yet worries about what tomorrow may bring keep you awake. The fire crackles, the wind moans, but the thoughts in your head are louder. Sleep comes in fragments. Your eyes close for a moment, then a small sound, a faint crackle, pulls you back awake. Sometimes the cold wakes you. You shift your position, pull another layer over yourself. The straw beneath you moves, rustles, begins to slide. Even that sound is enough to keep deep, comfortable sleep just out of reach. But eventually, exhaustion wins. Your eyes close, and you drift not into the peaceful sleep we imagine today, but into a rest filled with half-dreams, restless turning, and the constant reminder that survival itself is the greatest luxury. In the middle of the night, the room grows quieter. The wind outside softens, if only a little. The fire settles into a low, steady glow. The crackle of the wood now feels familiar and soothing, like a heartbeat. If you are lucky, you will not wake again until morning. But in the medieval world, luck is a rare thing. Even in sleep, your body remains alert. You may wake to a strange sound, to the realization that the fire's warmth has faded, or to the feeling that the cold has crept a little closer. Still, for a brief moment, you feel the warmth of the body beside you. That shared heat is the smallest yet strongest comfort against the cold. It may seem like a small thing, but in this world, it means everything. The warmth of others, the closeness, and the knowledge that you are not alone in this struggle to survive. This is what carries you through another night. As the night deepens, sleep in a medieval house never simply continues in a smooth, uninterrupted way. It comes in fragments, much like everything else in this world. You drift off for a while, then rise back toward the surface again, half asleep, half dreaming, unable to tell whether the sounds you hear come from outside or from within your own walls. You hear something scratching. Maybe it's the wind dragging a loose branch across the roof. Maybe it's a bold mouse, emerging once people have retreated into silence. Medieval houses are never truly empty at night. They are shared spaces, and not only with family. Small creatures live inside the walls, beneath the floor, and sometimes right inside the bed itself. After all, straw is a very inviting place to live. You shift slightly, careful not to wake the others. In bed, movement matters. One person turning too suddenly can pull a blanket away from someone else, and warmth is not something you give up easily. In the dark, there is a quiet, unspoken agreement. We stay close, we move as little as possible, and we make it through the night without trouble. As you slip back towards sleep, your breathing slows and becomes deliberate. Cold air hurts when you draw it in too quickly. That's why many people pull part of their cloak or blanket up toward their face and breathe through it, warming the air before it reaches their lungs. By morning, the fabric will be damp with breath, its edges stiff with frost. But for now, it works. Small tricks like this are learned early in life. No one explains them. They aren't taught with ceremony. You simply grow up knowing. The fire has changed too. There are no flames licking toward the ceiling anymore. Only a deep red glow remains. Carefully banked embers rest beneath a layer of ash, waiting. If this was done well, there will still be life in them by morning. If not, the day will begin with cold hands, frustration, and the hard work of starting a fire from nothing. Even in sleep, part of the mind listens to the fire. As we said, true rest is rare. Nearby you hear the sound of an animal shifting its weight. In winter, many homes keep livestock indoors. The slow breathing of a cow, the quiet movements of a goat, the soft rustle of hay. The smell is strong, yes, but the warmth is real. That warmth spreads through the room, blending with human body heat, smoke and damp wool. This is medieval central heating, imperfect but effective. If dreams come at all, they are light and strange. You don't sink deeply into them. You hover. The body stays alert, ready to wake if the fire fades, if the cold sharpens, or if a sound turns threatening. This kind of sleep isn't about comfort. It's about endurance, not an escape, just a brief pause. And yet, there is comfort here. Familiar sounds, familiar bodies close by. The quiet knowledge that everyone around you is facing the same night, the same cold, the same uncertainty. In the darkness, beneath layers of wool and straw, a gentle sense of belonging takes shape. Morning will come, sooner or later. It always has. And until then, you sleep the way medieval people slept, lightly, carefully, and together. At some point in the night, sleep loosens its grip even more. Not completely, just enough for awareness to slowly seep back in. Even in this half-asleep state, you don't open your eyes right away. There's no need to. Darkness looks the same whether your eyes are open or closed, and keeping them shut helps preserve the small amount of warmth your face has managed to hold on to. The first thing you notice is always the temperature. It has always been that way. Is the air colder than it was before? Has the fire burned too low? Has the wind found a new gap? Medieval sleep teaches you to check these things without thinking, much like modern people instinctively check their phones when they wake up. Cold is information. You pull the blanket closer, carefully. This matters. Wool is heavy and doesn't slide easily. Pull too hard, and you'll wake someone. Wake the wrong person, and you'll hear about it in the morning, maybe even pay for it. Worse still, you could lose the shared warmth you've built up. So you move slowly, inch by inch, as if you were carefully stitching delicate fabric. The straw beneath you has shifted. It always does. No matter how carefully the mattress was packed, gravity and time undo its order during the night. Near your shoulder there's now a thinner spot, where you can feel the hardness of the wooden frame beneath you. You try to redistribute the straw without making a sound, hoping to restore some balance. This is a skill. No one teaches it. You learn it through long, uncomfortable nights. Somewhere in the room, someone mutters in their sleep. A name, something that sounds like a half-finished complaint. Dreams leak into the air like smoke. Even without seeing a face, you recognize the voice. In a shared sleeping space, voices are more familiar than faces in the dark. A sound from the fire immediately grabs your attention. A soft collapse. The embers shifting, spreading slightly. You hold your breath and listen. After a few seconds, silence returns. The red glow is still there. You relax a little. You close your eyes again. The night goes on. Outside, the wind presses against the house once more, searching for a larger weakness, a new opening. These walls were never meant to stop it, only to slow it down. Moss, scraps of cloth, and dried mud can only do so much. After a few minutes of effort, the wind slips through the gaps. You feel a faint but persistent chill on your cheek, the only part left uncovered. You turn your head toward the warmer side, toward bodies, breath, and wool. You wait for sleep to return, and this time images appear. Not as clear stories, but as fragments. Firelight, fields, footsteps on frozen ground, dreams shaped by daily life, woven from work, hunger, and habit. In the Middle Ages, there are no elaborate fantasies. Dreams tend to stay practical. Hours pass like this. Time here isn't measured in minutes, but in the behavior of the fire and the mood of the cold. You wake, drift, adjust, and listen, again and again. This is how sleep works here. Rest is something gathered in pieces. And slowly, almost without noticing, the air begins to change. The cold is still there, but it sharpens differently. The silence feels altered. Far away, a bird makes a sound that doesn't belong to the night. Morning is still distant, but it is coming. For now, you stay where you are, in bed, wrapped in your blanket, alert at all times, waiting patiently. As the night goes on, details begin to emerge in a medieval house that you would never notice during the day. The fire, now reduced to glowing embers and tinted amber, reveals textures rather than shapes. The walls appear even more uneven. like a patchwork quilt of dried mud, straw fibers, and years of handmade repairs layered one over another. No two sections are alike. Each one bears the marks of a winter storm, a crack hastily sealed, a season barely endured. Above you, the roof's heavy, dark beams loom overhead. Thick wooden timbers, cut with simple tools, hold up the ceiling like the ribs of a great animal. From them hang bundles of dried herbs, rosemary, sage, and perhaps a little lavender, if someone truly believed in pleasant scents. When the wind presses against the roof outside, they sway so slightly it's almost imperceptible. The roof itself is alive in its own way. As snow settles, the thatch shifts. Moisture slowly seeps inward, not enough to drip, but enough to give the air a faint, earthy smell. In certain places, thin needles of cold air slide downward. You learn where they fall only after feeling the cold bite. Everyone learns. When bedding is laid out, those spots are carefully avoided. Sleeping arrangements are chosen with care. Heads are kept as far from the outer walls as possible. If there's a choice, feet point toward the fire. Children are placed wherever it's safest and warmest, wrapped tightly together until they look less like people and more like small bundles. The elderly settle closest to what remains of the fire's warmth, where the air moves the least. The bedding carries the marks of those who use it. Straw worn down and darkened by time. Fabric thinned where bodies have rested night after night. Blankets patched so many times that it's nearly impossible to tell what the original cloth once was. Nothing here is decorative. Everything exists because it still serves a purpose. Along one wall, the tools of the day remain exactly where they were left. A wooden bucket, a coiled rope, a plowshare leaning against the wall. These objects never leave the sleeping space. There is no separation between labor and rest. In the Middle Ages, morning begins exactly where night ends. Nearby, an animal breathes slowly. A cow's breath is deep and steady, forming faint clouds in the cool air. That breath adds warmth to the room, yes, but also moisture, sound, and presence. Medieval sleep is never solitary. Even with eyes closed, the movement of life continues all around you. Beneath the bedding, the ground has its own cold. Packed earth, hardened by countless footsteps, pulls warmth downward without mercy. Straw is meant to help, but it never fully succeeds. You are always aware of the floor, always negotiating with it. Bodies instinctively curl inward, reducing exposed space, conserving warmth the way fuel is carefully conserved in the fire. Outside, the village is quiet. There is no engine noise, no mechanical hum, no harsh electric light, only darkness, and now and then the faint glow leaking from other homes, each one sheltering its own cluster of sleepers. This is what medieval nights look like, not empty but quietly full. The night deepens and sleep settles again, thinner this time but steadier, not deep, never deep, just enough to rest the body, while the world waits patiently for morning. As the night reaches its deepest hours, when even the fire seems to hesitate, medieval houses grow heavier, not quieter, just heavier in feeling. Smoke no longer rises quickly. It hangs low, clinging to cloth, hair, and lungs. Even if there is a chimney, it is a crude thing. Some of the smoke escapes when it feels like it. The rest stays, becoming part of the night and part of sleep. And you continue sleeping beneath it all. The hearth now gives more light than heat. The stones around it are still warm to the touch, but no longer generous. Ash has been carefully spread before bed, fanning out in a pale gray arc. Someone in the house knows exactly how much wood to add and when to stop. Too much, and the fire burns out early. Too little, and it dies before morning. Fire here is not managed by guesswork. It's managed by experience. In the far corner of the room, shadows pile on top of one another. Shapes blur. A stool becomes something taller, harder to identify. A hanging cloak looks for a moment like a person standing still. Your mind notices it, then lets it go. Medieval nights train the imagination in strange ways. You learn not to panic at every shadow. Panic wastes what little energy you have. Your body shifts again, this time not for comfort, but for circulation. Limbs left too long in one position go numb. Blood needs to move. Fingers curl and uncurl beneath wool. Toes pressed together inside rough coverings. These small movements happen unconsciously, part of a quiet system designed to keep flesh alive until morning. Some families keep a pot of warm embers nearby, covered and waiting, not for light but for emergencies. If the hearth fails completely, those embers might save the night, fragile but powerful. A promise. You know exactly where they are, even without looking. Above you, the roof responds to the cold. Wood contracts. Thatch tightens. Every so often you hear frost or snow slide off the edge and fall outside with a soft, dull sound. You imagine the weight that gathered earlier, the way winter tests every weak structure until something finally gives. Here, no one undresses fully to sleep. Linen shirts, wool tunics, leggings, socks if you're lucky, all stay on. Belts are loosened, shoes removed, but the layers remain. Taking off clothing would give the cold a head start. Sleep here must be layered. Your clothes are your armor. Time moves differently now. Without candles, without bells. The night is measured by the body, by dry lips, by thirst, by stiffness, by that brief, delicate moment when exhaustion allows you to sink just a little deeper. That moment arrives quietly and leaves the same way. When dreams come, they draw from what surrounds you. The creak of beams becomes footsteps on snow. The hiss of embers turns into wind crossing open fields. Even in sleep, the medieval world does not let go. And yet beneath it all, there is resilience. Another hour survived. Another stretch of darkness endured. The house still stands. The fire lives on, quietly. Inside, people keep breathing, wrapped in wool, straw, smoke, and a shared determination. Morning is still far away. As the night slowly moves on, the house settles into a rhythm older than anyone inside it. These are the hours when even the boldest sounds soften. Conversation has faded away. Movement has become rare. Life doesn't come to a halt, but it lowers its voice. The walls, thick in some places, worryingly thin in others, cling stubbornly to the day's last warmth. During daylight they absorbed heat from the fire, and if it appeared, the sun. Now they release it slowly, not like something disappearing all at once, but like a memory gradually fading. If you press close, you can feel it, a faint echo of warmth trapped beneath layers of mud and straw. The floor tells a different story. Cold rises upward without hesitation. Packed earth cannot hold heat for long. It draws warmth from bones patiently, silently, without drama. Straw helps, of course, but under weight it compresses and loses its resistance. Over time, everyone learns where the thickest patches are. When bedding is laid out, those spots are claimed first, usually by the very young or the very old. Near the door, the wood shifts slightly. Doors in medieval homes are heavy, thick planks hung on iron hinges that complain with the smallest movement. At night, they are barred shut, not only against people, but against animals, wind, and fear itself. That door marks the boundary between the fragile warmth inside and the vast, relentless cold outside. As you move in bed, the folds of your clothing press into your skin. Wool, dried stiff with a day's sweat, itches. No one removes layers to ease the discomfort. It is endured, ignored, accepted. Comfort is not the goal here. Function is. Warmth matters more than softness, survival more than ease. The smell of the room is complex and unmistakable. Smoke, damp earth, animal musk, old fabric, and a faint sour note from stored food. To those who live here, it isn't unpleasant. It's familiar, reassuring in its own way. The scent of a place that has not been abandoned. In one corner, a bundle of kindling waits for morning, carefully stacked, dry, protected from moisture. Someone thought ahead. Someone always does. Everyone knows it will be needed when the day begins. A household survives on these small acts of preparation, repeated endlessly and rarely noticed. For a brief moment, sleep deepens, muscles fully loosen. For a few minutes, the body forgets the cold. Breathing slows, shoulders sink inward. This is the closest the night comes to peace. Outside, the village is quieter still. Roofs pressed down by frost, paths erased by darkness. Each home wrapped tightly around its own cluster of sleepers. No lights, no movement, just a quiet endurance spread across the land. Inside, the medieval house holds. It creaks, it smokes, it leaks warmth a little at a time. But it holds, and for those sleeping within it, for now, that is enough. As people lie half asleep in these fragile homes, the medieval world outside never truly rests. There are only small, brief pauses, but it never stops. Even at night, the weight, hardship, and burdens of life beyond the walls press inward. Trade routes, distant wars, failed harvests, and slow-moving migrations. Whether desired or not, they all somehow find their way into this small sleeping space. The house you sleep in exists because of trade. The wool in the blankets comes from sheep that were once part of a larger exchange. Someone sheared them, someone spun the thread, someone wove the cloth. Even in the most remote villages, nothing is completely isolated from life. Salt for food preservation, iron for tools, grain in bad years. These all traveled slowly along muddy roads and river paths, carried by carts and pack animals that never move fast enough to outrun winter. At night, these roads appear empty, or nearly empty. Sometimes a delayed traveler might arrive, knocking softly, hoping for shelter. A merchant caught in the weather, a messenger carrying urgent news. News comes unevenly, but when it arrives it changes everything. A new tax, a closed market, a lord preparing for conflict. People often fall asleep not knowing what kind of world they will wake up to. Sleep itself is shaped by uncertainty. In medieval life, war is rarely far away, even if it's not visible. Armies don't need to march through your village to affect you. A conflict 2 regions away can disrupt trade, raise prices, or drag young men out of their beds into service or battle. While lying half asleep, these thoughts quietly surface, not as panic, but as calculation. How much grain is left? Are the animals strong enough? Will next winter be harsher? Migration is another constant presence here. Families move from place to place after bad harvests or disease. Some settle temporarily, others just pass through, leaving behind silent, weary stories. The house you are resting in tonight may have sheltered strangers before. Its walls have heard accents you don't recognize, prayers said in different ways, worries brought from distant lands. Medieval homes quietly absorb these histories and, perhaps, keep them hidden for decades. Inside, the sleeping space reflects this greater instability. Nothing is permanent. Beds can be moved. Tools are portable. Even the house itself might not last through the generations. Constant repairs are necessary because permanence is rare. You sleep knowing that what exists today might not exist in the same form next year. Beyond the village, forests stretch dark and thick. They provide fuel, food, and danger. Wolves, thieves, deserters. Stories sometimes exaggerate them, but they are never fully dismissed or ignored. At night, these fears grow sharper, but familiarity dulls them. Over time, people learn not to fight uncertainty, but to live with it. So sleep is not an escape from medieval life. It is woven deeply into it. Rest happens within a web of economic pressures, social obligations, and distant events that shape survival every day. While you lie still, wrapped in rough cloth, the world outside slowly, often invisibly, changes. And yet, despite all this, sleep comes. Not because life is easy, but because it must. Tomorrow will demand strength, awareness, and labor. Tonight offers only this, a rest that is not fully peaceful, but functional. A brief pause in a world that never truly stops turning. As the night progresses, you begin to notice how your body slowly adapts to the ever-present cold and discomfort. You feel the slight weight of the rough wool against your skin, the hardness of the makeshift mattress beneath you, and the subtle tension in your back from lying still for so long. But no matter how much you shift, there's an unspoken truth about this kind of sleep. It's not a luxury, but a survival tactic. Comfort is a foreign concept here. The house itself breathes steadily, its rhythm a creaking of wooden beams. The shifting of the thatched roof under the pressure of the night becomes a lullaby. This isn't the quiet of peaceful slumber, it's the quiet of resistance. The house, like its inhabitants, fights the encroaching cold, and its purpose is to survive the night. The village's market square, usually bustling during the day, is now empty. There's no sound but the howling wind. The stalls are packed away, and the vendors, shopkeepers, and travelers have sought shelter for the night. Still, life continues on. Cargo and caravans carry salt, wool, and timber from distant lands, passing through forests and mountains. The sound of a blacksmith's hammer can be heard in the early hours as he shapes tools that sustain the village. Even at night, something is always being built, crafted, or repaired. But the constant motion of the outside world rarely crosses your mind as you lie awake. The worries come in different forms. If there was a bad harvest last year, or taxes unexpectedly rose, or if the army nearby is conscripting young men, these are the thoughts that surface in the quiet of the night. The small, intimate struggles of the medieval world often drift in and out of consciousness. Yet there is also a quiet sense of pride in how people manage to survive. It's the same pride you hear in the stories told in hushed tones around the fire. Stories of those who made it through another harsh winter, of those who somehow traded a few sacks of grain for what they needed, of the small victories that kept everyone alive for another season. These aren't grand romantic tales. There's no room for romance here. These are the quiet, enduring stories of survival. The struggle to live may not always be visible during the day, but at night, lying on straw, surrounded by the hum of the world outside, the reality sets in. You are part of a system much bigger than yourself, and sleep, however short, is a small victory. The medieval world may be brutal in its simplicity, but it is also defined by resilience. For the peasants living within its constraints, surviving another night means taking one more step in keeping the cycle going. They may wake to challenges, but they know how to face them with grit, creativity, and the ability to adapt to life's ever-changing demands. As the hours pass, sleep, however fleeting, becomes a shared moment in that ongoing struggle, a chance to close your eyes even if for just a few hours, knowing that tomorrow the battle continues. As the night goes on, the medieval world outside remains just as alive, even though it's hidden under a blanket of darkness. The night is a stage where events unfold far beyond the reach of the small, humble house you're sleeping in. In the distance, the faint sounds of distant animals, windswept trees, and the low rumble of wagons or carts moving along the dirt roads tell their own stories. The roads, unpaved and treacherous, are silent now, but come dawn, they will be busy again. Merchants from distant towns, soldiers with orders, and travelers carrying news will continue their long journeys. Despite the hardships of medieval life, the need for goods and trade never stops. Whether it's grain, timber, or spices, these commodities flow in and out of markets, crossing regions and borders, connecting people who would otherwise never meet. Trade may not be easy, but it's essential for survival. In medieval times, movement was a constant. If you weren't moving for trade, you were likely moving because of war or migration. If not by choice, then by force. The constant threat of conflict, be it a neighboring lord expanding his territory or an invading force from beyond the borders, kept people on edge. Even within their homes, they couldn't always be sure of their safety. But they adapted, learning to live with the knowledge that tomorrow could bring a raid, an army passing through, or an attack from a nearby faction. Families didn't just worry about the cold or local conflicts. They also had to deal with the constant pressure of feeding themselves. In winter, the land lay dormant, barren under a thick layer of frost. But in spring, life surged forward again. Fields would be plowed, seeds planted, and the cycle of growth and harvest would begin anew. Yet there was always uncertainty. A single bad year could ruin everything. A drought, a flood, a sudden pestilence, and a whole village could be left scrambling for food. Sometimes this struggle was shared with others, but sometimes it was an internal battle. Outside of daily survival, feasts and celebrations marked the medieval year. Lords and ladies, dressed in fine wool and linen, would gather in their great halls to celebrate the harvest, the changing of the seasons, or the end of a victorious battle. These events were filled with rich food, elaborate dances, and hearty laughter. But the laboring peasants who provided the work, food, and resources only heard about these events, never truly experiencing them. Yet in the midst of their struggles, small celebrations, weddings, births, and the rare day of rest would bring people together, offering brief respite from the grind of life. And the church. The church. The medieval church was as much a part of daily life as food and work. It wasn't just a place of worship, it was the pillar that held society together. From the local priest offering mass in the stone church at the center of the village to the towering cathedrals built over decades, the church shaped every part of life. The clergy held power, and their influence reached into every corner of medieval society. It wasn't just faith they provided, but the very structure of life itself, guiding how people lived, worked, and died. The church, with its constant prayers and rituals, was both a comfort and a reminder of the ever-present threat of judgment. For many, sleep would be preceded by whispered prayers, some spoken aloud, others only in the mind. The fear of God's wrath was never far, even as one tried to drift off into sleep. Dreams could be a manifestation of the soul's struggles, an echo of religious teachings, or the spirit's desire for peace. At home, the simplest elements of daily life remained the most important. Lying in the dark, wrapped in rough cloth, you become aware of the rhythm of the house, the sound of livestock shifting in the corner, the faint rustling of the thatched roof adjusting to the wind, the occasional scrape of a rat's claws against wood as it hunts for food. Everything has a purpose. Everything is intertwined. The household is a microcosm of the medieval world, a mix of resilience, uncertainty, and survival day by day. Life in the medieval world isn't a peaceful escape. It's a reflection of the larger world, where survival is always the top priority and comfort comes second, while the world outside the door spins with wars, commerce, migrations, and plagues. Inside, the focus is on the immediate, how to survive another night, how to endure the cold, and how to make it through another season. In this fragile balance, the warmth of the fire and the closeness of family provide the only real solace. They are your shields against the harshness of the outside world. As the hours pass, you begin to sense a quiet shift. The house, once alive with the soft howl of the wind and the occasional crackle of the fire, slowly starts to calm. The world outside, though still full of its own hidden movements, now feels much farther away. The cold is relentless, but the warmth of shared bodies and the comforting closeness of the people you've lived alongside all your life deepen the heat beneath the blankets. It's a fragile feeling, yet undeniably real. In the silence of the night, it's hard to tell how time moves. Every night spent in this medieval house is a continuation of the same struggle, for survival, for warmth, for a kind of comfort that barely exists. And still, despite all the hardship, there is an unspoken sense of gratitude in that struggle. Every rough moment, every small discomfort is balanced by a simple truth. You are still here, still alive, still breathing. The fire in the hearth has now faded almost entirely into embers, flickering once more before its final breath. The house grows quieter still as the last light dissolves into the darkness. The cold presses in more deeply now, but this is expected. It is time to rest, time to sleep, for tomorrow, as always, will demand more work, more endurance, and more small victories. Dawn is still far off, yet it approaches slowly and steadily. No matter how strong the cold or discomfort feels, you are not alone. There is the rhythm of family, the quiet harmony of synchronized breathing and beating hearts, while the world outside continues its slow march forward, whatever shape it may take. The distant echo of survival lingers in the stillness of the house, and for now, that is enough. Morning will come, eventually. It will bring new challenges, but also new small moments that make this life worth living. Another chance to step outside and feel the frost beneath your feet, to gather firewood, to check on the animals, to share a simple meal with those you love. The cycle will continue, just as it did for generations before. And in this small, humble house, as the last embers fade away, sleep finally takes hold again. It arrives quietly, not as an escape, but as a brief rest, a moment of calm before the day begins anew. By morning light, the world will be much the same. But tonight, as sleep wraps around you, the quiet comfort of knowing you are part of something far older than yourself is enough. Morning will come, as it always does, carrying with it the promise of survival. Just before dawn, medieval houses reach their most fragile moment. The fire is nearly gone now. Beneath a dull layer of ash, only a few stubborn embers still glow, barely alive. This is the coldest hour of the night. No one needs to say it. Everyone knows it, and everyone feels it. It's that long stretch when warmth is slowly spent, and morning still feels uncertain and far away. Bodies instinctively draw closer to one another. Blankets are pulled a little tighter, their edges carefully tucked in. Someone shifts position, but not for comfort, only to press closer to the shared warmth of other bodies. Breath becomes visible in the dim air. Each exhale appears like a small cloud and vanishes almost immediately. No one speaks. Speaking wastes warmth. Outside, the land seems to be holding its breath. The fields are frozen, standing in complete silence. The paths that will soon carry carts, boots, and animals are empty for now, erased from the world by frost and darkness. Somewhere beyond the village, merchants sleep beside their wagons, soldiers huddle near fires that are close to dying, and travelers wait for daylight to make movement safe again. In the Middle Ages, life never truly stops at night. It only waits. Inside the house, everything needed for morning has already been prepared. A bucket by the door, kindling stacked within easy reach, boots turned upside down so they won't collect moisture. These are small signs of the work and urgency the morning will bring. Quiet declarations that the day will come and that people will be ready when it does. Faith, too, moves through the room, as naturally as smoke once did, not grand prayers or sermons, but familiar words whispered softly beneath the blankets, half-remembered phrases passed down through generations, for warmth, for health, for a harvest kinder than the last. Here, religion is not abstract or distant from life. It is practical, it is real, and it lives most clearly in moments like this. Nearby, an animal shifts in place, a low sound, a body changing its weight, life responding to life. The house feels full, not crowded, but full of purpose. Every person, every object, every living thing within these walls has a reason to be here. Nothing is wasted, nothing is excess, and nothing is accidental. Sleep returns briefly, not deep, but heavier than before. Muscles loosen, thoughts slow even further. The body gathers whatever strength it can for the hours ahead. This is the final sleep of the night, like taking the last warmth from a fading fire, carefully and with respect. Soon the movement of a new day will begin again. As always, someone will rise first. Ashes will be stirred. Breath will fog the air as practiced hands work quickly and efficiently. Life resumes exactly where it paused. But for this moment, balanced between darkness and dawn, the medieval house gently keeps its people alive. It has done its duty. And in this world, that is no small thing. And morning finally arrives, but without any ceremony. It doesn't rush in or announce itself. It slips quietly into the medieval house. Through the very same cracks the cold used all night long, the darkness loosens its grip, not all at once, but slowly. Shapes return to their proper forms, and shadows gently retreat into the corners. Someone rises from the bed, slowly, carefully. Stiff joints crack softly in protest. Feet touch the cold earth floor, and there is a brief pause before the day begins, a moment to gather oneself. The ashes in the hearth are stirred. A hidden ember is coaxed back to life. A thin thread of smoke curls upward, carrying traces of warmth, labor, and continuity. The house wakes piece by piece. Blankets are folded, straw is smoothed back into place. Sleeping areas dissolve once more into living spaces. What was a bed becomes a bench. Rest gives way to work. There is no sharp line between night and day here, only a change in purpose. Outside, the village comes back into view. Doors open wide. Smoke rises from rooftops. The first sounds of movement ripple outward. Boots on frozen ground. Animals led from shelter. Quick greetings exchanged before work pulls everyone apart again. Life resumes exactly where it left off. No one lingers on the night they just endured. That's not how medieval life works. Survival is not something celebrated each day. It is something expected. Nights are endured so that days can be used. The house asks for no gratitude. It is repaired when needed, reinforced when it weakens, rebuilt if it collapses, just like the people who live within it. Sleeping in a medieval house is not about comfort or ease. It is about continuity, about lasting long enough to plant again, to trade again, to repair again, about carrying life forward through imperfect nights. And though centuries separate us from that world, something familiar still remains: the need for shelter, the quiet relief that morning brings, the simple human hope that rest, however brief, will be enough to face what comes next. So when we imagine sleeping in a medieval house, we are not only imagining straw mattresses and smoky rooms, we are stepping into a rhythm shaped by endurance, a way of living where rest is earned, shared, and never taken for granted. The night has ended. The house still stands. Life continues where it left off. And perhaps that is the truest legacy of medieval sleep.